Hello and welcome to Massive. If you find this video helpful or entertaining, don't forget to press that like button. It helps me immensely, and press subscribe if you want to see more. In any case, today we're talking about a game that has not happened and may never happen, but I remain hopeful because this game is Backspace. Imagine, if you will, a massive role-playing experience featuring time travel and alien invasion and guns built on Skyrim's engine with Skyrim's AI system. That's Backspace, something that was in the works at the studio Obsidian. Now, a lot of sources on the internet have been talking about this the last couple days, and one of them reached out to Obsidian Studios for comments, and the Obsidian boss reported that Backspace is still on the shelf somewhere, so it's something that could still be made. Quote, Backspace was a project concept that we neither canceled nor greenlit. Quote, we had some great people work on the idea for Backspace for a bit of time and then moved them off to other projects as opportunities came up. We've been around for 10 years now and have had a bunch of great ideas that we still have sitting around that we may be able to return to in the future. So, I'm kind of hoping that they revisit this one because it's solid. It sounds really, really good. But, well, now what we're all thinking. What is Backspace? Well, this is how a design document from Obsidian describes the game. Backspace is a single-player action RPG set in a sci-fi space environment with simple elements of time travel. The combat is paced similarly to Skyrim, but slightly faster since there is no concept of blocking. The easiest way to look at it is as a mix of Borderlands, Mass Effect, and System Shock 2 for gameplay and setting. It was to be co-developed to some degree with Bethesda, and that's how the rumor goes anyway, and the same engine as Skyrim would be used for the game. Even though Backspace wouldn't be an open world title, you'd still be able to travel between planets and to one very large space station, kind of like Mass Effect. Speaking of that, noted on the design document of the game, they said the station is huge. They even compared the size of the station to the Citadel of Mass Effect. That makes me wonder though, are they talking about the Citadel that you could see, the portion of the Citadel that you could see in Mass Effect? Because it's a very, very, very small area. But if they meant the actual size of the Citadel as seen in the game, but you couldn't visit in the game, then that is far larger than I think would be possible to put inside of a game. In any case, the Citadel, the station in Backspace would have multiple locations proposed for research fields, which would allow for vegetation overgrowth, mutations, and high-tech disasters. I'm kind of thinking areas like BioShock for those research fields. But your player, or your character that you'd be playing as, is a cyborg. He's 10% machine and 90% human, and he worked at a research lab that was attacked by aliens. And the summary of that is, quote, in the distant future, mankind has colonized the far reaches of the galaxy. Near the center of the galaxy is an enormous space station dedicated to the advanced research in a multitude of subjects such as temporal mechanics and nano-cybernetics. The game begins with the station falling under attack from an invading alien force. In case Obsidian ever picks up on this project again, luckily no sources on the internet spoil anything too much, but the basis of the plot is this. A technical error would fling your character 10 years into the future, and you'd spend a bulk of the game hopping back and forth between the time of the attack and a dismal alien-occupied future. Quests in the game would task you with hopping between timelines in an attempt to save humankind. Now, Backspace's character development is a mix of Skyrim and New Vegas. You would be able to customize your character's appearance, I believe, from the beginning, and further your skills by using them over time. As the quote, again, there's a lot of quotes in this, so, quote, as the player completes quests, solves puzzles, and eliminates enemies, they gain experience points towards their next level, similar to Skyrim. When they gain a level, they're awarded stat points and ability points that they may use to increase their stats and abilities respectively. Every other level, they can add a perk, just like Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas. End quote. Upon beginning Backspace, you'd pick a preset background for your character. This would determine your starting stats. Tropes for this, including things along the lines of the mad scientist, the arrogant savant, or the lone wolf. And just like Mass Effect, your background would affect how people in the world reacts to your character. As with the beginning of Mass Effect, you could choose, I believe one was a colonist, and that would preset your backstory, give you some different stats, I think, and that would change how the world views your character. It would change how the world reacts to your character, in terms of the NPCs, and in terms of the game's universe, etc., and so on and so forth, whatever. But it's a system that works well. It's been proven that it works well. It's used in Mass Effect for all of the games. And I think that it's a system that would work very well in a game like Backspace. But in any case, Backspace combat system would find common grounds with Skyrim, albeit with guns, of course. The game's ranged weapons would include, but not be limited to, machine guns, sniper rifles, shotguns, semi-automatic rifles, and rocket launchers. Of course, there'd be melee weapons also, like axes or katanas, chainsaws, which that would be the one I look forward to, mauls, and something called a temporal lance. Probably a weapon that has to do with space and time or something. Quote, "Combat in Backspace occurs very similarly to Skyrim. The player can attack enemies using various ranged or melee weapons and abilities that they acquire and create throughout the game. The player can also utilize stealth tactics to avoid some enemies entirely. Since Skyrim allows for dual wielding of weapons and abilities, all one-handed weapons may be dual wielded. The controller's left trigger uses the weapon and ability in the left hand, and the right trigger uses the weapon and ability in the right hand. If a two-handed weapon is equipped, both hands are used. Pressing the right trigger will use the weapon's ability standard attack, and the left trigger will use its special secondary attack. Two-handed weapons and abilities are much stronger than one-handed weapons. Special abilities in the game would be connected to your character's robot arm. One ability, for example, Claw Strike, will transform your cyborg arm into a claw for the duration of the quick attack. Psionic abilities would be used to damage and repel enemies. Now, the design document also references innovative stealth mechanics. They're actually really cool. Now, quote territory again. Quote, "Unlike Skyrim and Fallout New Vegas, stealth in Backspace is 100% active and undetectable, unless something disrupts it. The player is completely cloaked, a la a stealth boy, for instance, when they enter stealth. Doing this will slowly consume energy, but the player is completely invisible until they deactivate their cloak. This means that they can engage and avoid some enemies while being completely invisible." Personal Cloak. Cloak is an active ability that the player must toggle. While active, the ability slowly consumes the player's energy. The player can use other abilities while cloaked and will remain invisible as long as they still have energy. Some players can detect the player's cloak if they have infrared detection. Cloak Emitter. An alternative to using a personal cloak is deploying a Cloak Emitter. Cloak Emitters can be constructed and consume no energy from the player. If the player is within the Cloak Emitter's radius, the player is completely invisible. The emitter itself is not invisible and is vulnerable to enemy attacks. The player can retrieve the emitter after it's been deployed to use it again if it has not been destroyed by the enemies. I wonder if you have to recharge it, like if you use batteries or something. That would make sense to me, but in any case, another large chunk of the game's concept would be deployable items, such as frag mines, turrets, decoy robots, and anything else I generally suck with in video games. Now, a lot of Obsidian role-playing games have been known for strong supporting casts, such as New Vegas. So what about companions? Well, Backspace has that too. Quote, "Since only the player can travel through time, companions in Backspace take the form of AIs that the player can equip in their AI slot. An equipped AI can engage in dialogue with the player and provides a bonus to the player depending on the AI like an increase in damage or an increase in energy regeneration. AIs can be found throughout the game and have a variety of personalities. Once the player acquires an AI, they will be always visible on the UI and represented by their emoticon. When an AI talks to the player, their emoticon can change based on their feelings of what they're discussing. Then there's this other interesting idea, which is scarabs. Quote, "Scarabs are small robots that have become the multi-tool of the future. Scarabs are deployed to handle a variety of tasks throughout the station, like building complex structures and repairing vital systems. The scarabs operate semi-autonomously once they have been given a command, but most of the time they are controlled by a scarab queen in a hive-like fashion. Each district on the station has its own queen to help balance the workload, and at the core of the station is a super queen to coordinate the district queens. Scarab queens are not self-aware. They have minimal AI and are completely instructed to obey their masters. Scarabs are also deployed on planets that the planet gates are located on. Before a planet is colonized, a large batch of scarabs is deployed to scavenge and refine resources that are used to construct a basic base for humans. A queen is deployed with the scarabs to coordinate this effort. Bearing in mind that this is a very early version of Backspace, and if they ever do decide to go forward with the game, the end result would likely be very different than what's in this video, but even with that in mind, I look forward to them actually picking this one back up. I think this is a game that they would pick back up. It's solid, it's got good ideas, some things sound a little generic, but that's with any game. And if this would be like a first-person Mass Effect, then I'm all for it. The Mass Effect is a game that I like very much, and I think Backspace would be as highly regarded as Mass Effect, if not even more, after the travesty of Mass Effect's 3 ending. In any case, thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to press the like button. It helps. And subscribe for more. We'll see you next time. Take care.